Music Stream. And now, your hosts, Scott, Jana, and Nine. You wanted the dirt on Tulsa. You got it.
Hey everyone, this is Tulsa Music Stream, episode 62.
Yes.
And we are going to be with Anthony Quarter from Tora Tora here shortly.
Yes, we are.
We already have him on Zoom, and hopefully my mic is not cutting out.
I think it sounds better now. It was a little off there at first, but I think we got you going.
2, 1.
Yeah, you got a little, man.
All right, go ahead.
Isn't that just typical? That's typical technical difficulties right off the bat. There we go.
Go ahead.
It's okay. It's okay. No problem, Scott. You do your thing. Anthony is one of the rare guests. We have 2 in a row now that have shown up early to his interview. This is very rare for musicians. It's a special talent when these guys show up early. It shows his professionalism right off the bat. So, Anthony, we want to thank you for joining us here on Tulsa Music Stream tonight. It looks like you guys just played the Beale Street Music Festival back in May. Have you guys done a lot of shows this summer?
Man, we haven't. We've only done about 3 or 4 shows this year, but man, Beale Street's one of our favorites. We love being there. The lineup was incredible. It's always fun to play at home. We always tell everybody, if you've never had a chance to catch us in our hometown, it's it's a pretty special experience. Those guys launched us, and it's like a family kind of. When I look out at the audience, like everybody in that audience, I think I've stayed out half the night with most of those people. Wow. Went to high school. So it's a really unique experience. They were the whole reason that we got started, like getting our songs on the radio. They requested our songs there, when that was one of our only outlets, and MTV was one of our outlets back then. And they physically, called in to, help us launch the single and stuff when the first record was coming out.
Right. And
this time doing Beale Street Music Festival was really awesome. I don't know if anybody watching or listening has ever been. Most of the time it's runs parallel along the banks of the Mississippi River in Tom Park. And there's kind of like 3 stages kind of lined up, back to back with the crowds kind of going through it. Mm-hmm. And they were doing construction this year. So they moved it up into the fairgrounds up next to our hometown Mid-South Coliseum, where we saw all the bands, man. We saw the concerts, AC/DC and everybody.
Right.
And anyway, we're playing in this park, and it was one of our first gigs. We literally were standing on stage, and we were looking across the field. We go, that's where we were playing when we were like in high school.
Wow.
We played this.
That's so cool, man.
We played the Mid-South Fair, and it was just kind of like a full circle moment for a second for all of us. We walked out, but it was really fun. There was a bunch of bands on it. Rival Sons was there. I'm really a huge fan of that singer, Jay Buchanan. He was amazing. The Stone Temple Pilots guys were there, Smashing Pumpkins.
Wow.
And there was one other band. I'm missing a guy. He was on Big Machine Records. I can't think of it. He's from Seattle, but he was freaking awesome. We actually shared a dressing room with him. Excuse me, I'm drawing a blank, but anyway, the whole day was awesome. And man, the Rival Sons were just really inspiring. I don't know if any of your listeners or people watching have checked them out, but that guy,
definitely.
He's incredible on stage. He just, they're kind of a groove band,
sure.
And kind of down, you're just kind of jamming out. And in one part of their set, man, he grabbed an acoustic guitar. He wasn't even like strumming it. He was just kind of plucking on the strings. But there was thousands of people standing there, man, and it took your breath away. I mean, everybody just went, and he just sat there until he got through the song. And then when he finished, everybody just went, they just went, and I mean, it was one of those things where you go, man, he could do anything he wanted to. The audience was just in the palm of his hand. He was awesome. I can't say enough. Cool. I get inspired by singers that move you, man, your emotions and stuff. And he's definitely got that. He's pretty amazing. And he's a super nice dude. That was one of my favorite things. I got to talk to him. He had lived here in Nashville. My band is based in Memphis. I've been in Nashville for a really long time, but and he actually lived here And so we got to talk for a second. And he was super down to earth, and that always makes it really cool.
You bet
when you
it
meet
does.
somebody, that you're inspired by, and they're real down to earth. So
Absolutely,
awesome.
absolutely. Go ahead, Scott.
Bill Creek Music Fest was amazing. We love working with them. It had been 2018 was the last time we had played there, and the people that run it, Mr. Holt, that's been there for a long time. They let us join it this year, so it was pretty amazing. It was really fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Go ahead, Scott.
Now, speaking of like music festivals, I believe Rocklahoma in 2008 was one of the festivals that kind of sparked your guys' reunion thing. And when you guys were kind of out of it for a while, then you reunited and everything. How close was Rocklahoma, one of your first festivals of coming back?
Man, it was amazing. It was a lot of fun. It's pretty incredible for us, like, to have been friends for as long as we've been, and to be able to be making music together. We met each other in high school, started out as a little garage band, and we've kind of all stepped back away from our band activities and stuff because of our families and stuff at different times.
Sure.
And we've always understood that we're kind of a family first kind of mentality. And but we took a big break for a while, and then we did a hometown show in Memphis at a place called Newbies. It was on the Strip, Highland Strip, right there by the University of Memphis. And it was just so fun, and we had an opportunity to go and do Rocklahoma. We had gotten together, we were getting together to do that reunion show thing to kind of celebrate some time together. And man, it was so cool. It was really amazing to see a bunch of fans out there that they were sporting our t-shirts, repping us out there. They came back and talked to us about our music and stuff. And, it's just incredible. That music's really super powerful. We're inspired by all the people that we get to meet, man. I mean, everybody that we meet, we think about them when we're working on records, and the stories that we have, the crazy, adventures that we get tangled up in.
Yeah.
And, it was just so cool, man. I was really nervous. That day we played early in the day. It was super hot, and my voice feels really rested. We haven't been like road dogs for a long time, so I was wondering how it was going to perform and all that kind of stuff, and just being up in front of everybody. But it was really fun. Everybody was really nice about it, and they allowed us the opportunity to come out and try to do that. And we got to see Kicks and a bunch of bands that we're fans of out there.
Now, I believe that it didn't storm.
I think it did. Were you guys caught up in that? That was an awful storm.
It was so crazy. We went, we were in temporary trailers in the back, for the dressing rooms and stuff. And we left our dressing room to go do some radio interviews and stuff. And while we were there, we went in and we split off into groups, like the bass player and I went in one room, and the guitar player and drummer went in another room. And we were sitting there. We kind of noticed when we were on stage, you could kind of look out over the audience, and I mean, it's flat. It was in like Pryor, Oklahoma. You could look way off, and in the distance, there was this dark cloud, man, like kind of ominous looking thing, but it was moving really slow,
Yeah.
And so I guess we got, to visiting and everything backstage, and we weren't really thinking about it, but we went to that other trailer, and all of a sudden the lighting from outside, the daylight changed. It kind of got dark, and we said, whoa, that's kind of different. And the next thing I knew, man, I'm not kidding. The rain was rushing by the window. It looked like the trailer was moving. It was like you're driving down the road. The rain was going. I kind of stood up and I looked out the window, and there was a BMW sitting out there parked next to the trailer, and there was about 3 inches or 4 inches of water was on the ground, like right as the rain started. And we were like, oh my God. And then we kind of looked at each other and we go, oh my God, this is how it happens, man. We're sitting in the trailer in the middle of a field. This is like going to be Tornado Alley or something.
Yeah, it knocked over a bunch of stages. Yeah,
it blew in. I think only one stage got blown over, and thank goodness nobody was severely injured. I know a guy hurt his arm. I think he might have broke his arm.
Yeah, we were there in the beer tent there in the back, and watched it all unfold. We saw it. We got to see your set and everything. And I think it was Trickster, and it started coming really down on them. and then they went ahead and did their last song or whatever, and then got the hell out of there. And then, I mean, we were hanging on like the tent poles, and I was like, I don't know if this is a good idea.
Grabbing metal in the middle of an electrical storm. That's brilliant. That's just
makes
brilliant.
for good rock and roll stories, though.
Oh my God.
It is true. And man, there was a lot of, when we were coming back, there was water rushing across the ground, and there was like, cords laying everywhere. And so you're like, man, this is kind of crazy looking, but nobody got hurt. And it seemed like the beer tent was really happy. We actually ended up back in there with you guys, I think. So
yeah. Hey, let's go. Let me ask the next one, if you don't mind. I want to talk a little bit about you guys' recent songs, because you all are really putting out some very quality material. You sound great. The band sounds great. For example, Go Where the Love Is, Little Girl Blue, and Trip the Light, fantastic. I love that song. Talk about absolutely. Is you guys' plan to just kind of keep releasing singles for now, or are you all working on another new full album?
Man, that's a great question. We actually got in that single mentality based off the previous recording sessions that we did. We released this record, the Bastards of Bill on Frontier, which was a great process, but we recorded that record basically live. We were on a really limited budget financially and time wise. And so when we got a chance to go back in the studio this time, we said, hey man, we want to have time to kind of work on this stuff. John was amazing on the Bastards of Bill record, because there was a lot of pressure on him just because we were there for a couple of days to get all the basic tracks together.
Right.
And so we thought about it this time, and y'all, it was crazy. We were thinking, like everybody was, we kind of cruised out of 2019. We flew out and worked with Wolfpack Productions, Anthony Lucero, and then we were out in Denver and played a show. And it was on Valentine's Day, and we were scheduled to be in the studio in March to go for some follow-up recordings to Bastards of Bill. And I just said, hey, we were at the airport. I remember talking to the band, hey, I'll see you in a month. We're, cool. We're going to take a break. I'll see you in a minute. And like everybody, we remember around the middle of March, like the 16th or something, the whole world hits the pause button, and it was funny when I first talked to the band. I said, hey man, it'll blow over and we'll be back together in a couple weeks. And like everybody was kind of panicking and trying to figure out what was going on. But we know, a month later, it was a whole different situation than it was at the beginning of March. It became something much more serious. And, but it took us about 14 months, like everybody else, to see each other. We actually went back to Memphis in 2021. It was on my birthday. I went down to Memphis and we met back up. And it was the first time to see the band in person, which was pretty crazy from back in February of 2020. So that was, that was a big deal. And we didn't even set up in the studio, man. Our mic up in the studio, we drug our equipment in and turned our amps on like right away and just wanted to sing and play and, jam. And so, but we got in there. And so we recorded about 12 basic tracks to things. And we were talking about it and we said, man, you know what? We want to give John time to, experiment with his drums and change his tunings on his snare and all that kind of stuff. And we said, man, let's just don't be in a rush with it. Right. So we got the basic things together. And then we said, you know what? We talked about Bastards of Bill. We let out Rosa Jericho was a preview release. We let out Silence the Sirens and did a lyric video for that. And then we let out Son of a Prodigal Son. But we were wondering, we said, did anybody hear any of the rest of the record? Did anybody even listen to Lights Up the River or Let Us Be One, some of these other tracks that we had worked on? And we said, well, why don't we just put out some one at a time this time and just kind of let them live with it. If they're digging it, we'll kind of let it float around out there for a little while and follow up. And I from a music industry standpoint, depending on your genre or whatever, the consistency of getting stuff out is, to keep your audience engaged is kind of different depending on who you are. But we've noticed kind of in the rock world, like Tesla's done it some where they're just kind of letting a single out at a time, that I think it gives people time to listen through and,
it's not a bad formula. Hey, listen, it's not a bad formula. The Beatles released a couple singles and then an album, and then a couple singles and then an album. So it's not a bad formula. Yeah, and we're having fun. I mean, I think eventually, what you were asking. Sorry to do the roundabout answer, but it was kind of like we're thinking it'll eventually, build into a project for sure. It's kind of those were kind of a snapshot of where we were
at the time, but we've been having such a good time. You know, Keith and I were talking, and we're still excited about working with each other and being creative. Even after all the time that we've been together, we still genuinely just enjoy getting together and playing and stuff. And Keith and I kind of stayed in touch during COVID. We were trading ideas.
Yeah.
And we're in some crazy tune-ins and all that kind of stuff, kind of laughing. But we're kind of more, we want to be in the room with each other. So, and that's why we kind of held off from doing, during COVID, we let this project out, this Unplugged.
Oh, yes.
This
Cool.
live concert in Memphis at a room called Lafayette's. And we had a really dear friend of ours, Jim Green. He was a local promoter, and we've known him since we were kids. I started singing, and he started promoting shows when he was about 18. And he was down in Mississippi, or down near the Ole Miss campus and stuff, doing shows. And he built his way all the way up as a promoter to run in the Bank Plus Amphitheater is what it was called previously. And it was a huge venue. He had two of them, one in South Haven, Mississippi, right outside of Memphis, and then one over in Little Rock, Arkansas. And so we worked with Jim every year. We bumped into each other, I guess, in the early 2000 teens, and he started talking to us. He would see shows in the pipeline coming, like White Snake or Leonard Skinner, or it would be some show, and he'd go, "Hey, you want to come down here, and it'll be a good payday, and it'll be a killer audience. You want to come down here?" And so we were working together. Once or twice a year, we had a good going home kind of gig, and tried to make it something special for everybody. And so he talked to us about that Unplugged show. He said, "Man, I got an idea." He goes, "I want y'all to do Unplugged. I got a venue picked out." And he goes, "It's going to be really intimate." And he goes, "My only request is that you record it." And it was, kind of a big discussion for the band. Keith, our guitar player, doesn't want to do acoustic stuff. He wants to be through his amp, through his rig, and be cranked up and like crunchy. And
sure. But
we got to talking about it. We were kind of trying to persuade him. And we said, "Man, this would be fun. We could do some deep dives. We could go do some songs that we normally don't put in the set."
Right.
And man, I just got to, tip my hat to him, not just because I'm, they're my brothers and being biased or whatever, but they really worked on the arrangements and stuff. And we had such a cool experience. It was so fun. I was so glad that we recorded it. I wish we would have videoed it. Nobody was thinking about that at the time. We were just kind of working on the material and stuff.
Right.
And we had a really good friend that was going to do the recording into Pro Tools or whatever for live. And, but anyway, it was so fun. We had a bunch of people there, and it was kind of like what I was telling you at the beginning. When I looked at that audience, because that was such a small room and such an intimate thing. I mean, I was looking at people that I played high school football with, when I was a freshman in high school. We've been friends that long.
Yeah.
And they had big tables full of people, and they had traveled with us. Some of those guys had traveled around the country, moved around for different geographic areas for their work or whatever, and they always would come see us. And so to have all those guys there, and they were there for like the VIP experience and all that stuff. We got to, tell a bunch of bad stories on each other and do some hanging out. But it was really fun. And we have 5 songs, I think, on this Unplugged EP, and then we have some other stuff in the can. We let out a song called Everbright that didn't make it onto the press vinyl. We did that over the summer to just kind of keep people updated on some of the stuff that we were working on. And so we got a couple more of those that are kind of around that'll eventually see the light of day. But yeah, it's a different approach, man. It's a different world. Nowadays, the music industry, with technology and the resources that are available now, and the amount of noise that's everywhere, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean we're overstimulated with so many things and so many options and stuff.
Right.
We're just hoping people would latch on to some of these songs. The Trip to Light Fantastic was one that Keith and I kind of started talking about and started working on early. And we said, you know what, we're close on this one. Why don't we just go ahead and work this one up and finish it? And so far, what we've been doing is we've been trying to stay about 2 songs ahead where we're working on this stuff. And then while we're working on it, we're getting the other ones mixed and mastered and dropping those out. And we've got a new one coming out really soon. I think you guys are going to freak out. It's really different. It's not something that we've done before, instrumental wise. And I think it's going to be really fun. Keith's done some really interesting guitar stuff on it. We're just having fun, man, still being creative.
Sure.
We're
That's
trying
cool.
to put stuff now together. We're still passionate about it, man. I'm still as crazy about being creative as I was, when I first started playing guitar and stuff, when I was first, learning chords and stuff. I'm finding myself, I think that part of you, whatever that creative thing is, it gets stronger as you get older. I think it's like something that you don't take for granted. You know, we are all, like I said before, we all have other commitments and things going on in our life and stuff, but that has been like a mainstay for each one of us. We've all been creative in other capacities outside of Tora Tora. And, you know, just being totally candid with everybody on here, man, I've had points in my life where I just said, hey, I think I'm going to just turn this off and kind of, you know, take a break for a minute. And you can't, you know, it's like kind of just part of who you are. If you start doing that, you kind of realize, man, this is something that's kind of like an outlet.
So are you guys having to like conflict of how many new songs you're adding to your set list as opposed with all, you know, all of your ones that come off your, you know, your first album, your second album, and of course your third one?
You know, they're all like kind of little babies. Like I know people tell y'all that all the time, that you're kind of fighting for your children to make it into the, you know, the process or whatever, whether it's going on the project or it's going to be on the live thing. I think a lot of ours lately have had to do with those tune-ins I'm talking about. If we're doing fly dates and stuff like that, Keith will have a couple of guitars with him, you know, one main guitar and kind of a backup, but we haven't really got super adventurous on the crazy open tune-ins and all that. We would probably do some of that stuff at the home show where he could bring, you know, extra gear and stuff, or if we're traveling with a, you know, equipment trucks and stuff to go to the venues we're going
so
to.
he has what he's comfortable with.
Yeah.
It's fun, man. We've found some really interesting ones through the years, man. I've had different friends of mine. I was laughing one time in Memphis. I was hanging at a little bar in Midtown, and it was some of my favorite musicians, some of my favorite writers, super talented dudes that I looked up to. And we were kind of, you know, having a cocktail or something. And it was kind of late. And we were talking, and we said, hey, man, you know, you ever feel like, or at least I did, I said, do you just feel like you're writing the same song over and over sometimes, you know, or whatever? And everybody kind of laughed, and they said, man, that's your style. I mean, you're going to be hanging in those certain areas with your voice, where it is and all that stuff, and the chord progressions and all that. But this one friend of mine said, hand me that napkin over there. And he wrote out, you know, like an open tune in. And he said, go home and tune your guitar to this, and then talk to me next time you see me.
Wow.
And it was true. I went home, I did it. It was like an open D tuning or something. And I went home. I realized the one he was talking about was one that Keith had used on one of our recordings on Dead Man's Hand, on the Wild America record. We had written with a guy named Stan Lynch. And so we had used that one before, but I didn't have it on my acoustics at the house. But anyway, once I put it in that tuning, I never took it out. I mean, the one's behind me, I've still got one. It stays in that one all the time.
I'm just curious. Can you tell me real quick what that tuning is? We play, so I'm curious now.
It's just like a dad-gad, I think is what people call it.
Okay.
It's
Dad-gad.
just, yeah, it's just kind of, and I kind of move some of the strings like a half step or a step up, depending on like what kind of melodies and stuff you're working on. But it's just cool. I mean, we're still kind of all dealing within the same parameters, but it just the harmonics of everything kind of rings different. The melodies and stuff, it takes you somewhere that sounds a little bit different, and it's fun. You know, it's still, that part of it makes it still exciting and stuff, figuring out new ways to express yourself and everything. I mean, I love it, man. But yeah, man, talking about the set and stuff, it is hard because your latest stuff, just as a songwriter in general, you're always most excited about the last one. You're like, man, I've used every, you know, little trick and tool that I've got. Now I've got this one. This is like the best thing I've ever done. And so you're kind of wanting those to make it in there. But we've done quite a few, man. On the Bastards of Bill record, we pulled in, you know, Son of a Prodigal Son was one of the one with the video. So we did that one a lot. Yeah. We did Giants Fall. We used to open with that one a little bit because that's a really fun one to, it's comfortable and we can kind of all get, you know, at ease using that one. But it's funny, man, you kind of get in these routines with your sets and stuff. And for the audience and stuff, you want to keep it exciting. You want to kind of change it up a little bit. But you also know that a lot of people are there to hear this specific, you know, song, whether it's nostalgia or some memory or whatever it is.
I'm actually, what anniversary of Surprise Attack are you at now with that? What year did that come?
This would probably be the 30th. It was 92. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
We're super proud of that record, y'all.
So if it's the 30th anniversary, I'm sure you guys are, you know, having to throw in a lot of those, of course, your hits and stuff. And I love the first track. and Love's a Bitch, great track.
Mm-hmm.
The whole album is just, I mean, the album cover is just phenomenal. Everything about that album is just right there with all the greats, of that era.
I agree.
Who made?
Oh, thank you, man.
Who did the album
man,
cover for that anyway?
That was through the creative department at A&M.
Okay.
And y'all are gonna have to forgive me. I'm drawing a blank on the guy's name. But we worked with them. We worked on that first record for about a year. I think we signed a record deal, and then we recorded probably, I don't know, 60 songs for that first record.
Wow.
We were writing and
Jeez.
writing and writing. And Walking Shoes was one of the very last. I mean, Love's a Bitch that you mentioned went on the EP that we had out in Memphis. It was one of the first songs we ever wrote. And it's kind of always hung around and stayed with us. And it's always in the set. But yeah, Surprise Attack was crazy, man. It was like our first experience was overwhelming in a way, not in a bad way. It was just, we were so excited, the potential of everything, and just being in there with the people we were working with. We were working with a guy named Paul Eversole. He was the guy that had helped us with our EP. And he actually there's a studio in Memphis called Ardent Studios. I don't know if your people watching or your listeners know about Ardent Studios, but if you don't know about it, go look it up. There was a guy named John Fry that ran the studio, and he was an amazing person, man. He started the studio like in his grandmother's sewing room and in his garage at his house. And then he was in high school, and then he moved over to National Street in Memphis. Mm-hmm. And he was very smart. What he did is, at the time, Stax was blowing up. And I don't know if your listeners know about Stax soul music, but they were the biggest black-owned business in the United States at the time. They were battling with, it was them and Motown. So you had Detroit and soul music going on, and then you had the South with Otis Redding and Wilson Pickett and all those dudes. So they were kind of battling out. And what John did, he was really savvy, man. He bought the same recording equipment that Stax had, and he was this little young, teenage dude, and he put this equipment in, so he got the overflow from Stax. So he was having these really successful producers come over, and he was showing these little kids, these little, suburban little white dudes, hey, this is how I got the guitar sound on that Otis Redding song. This is how we mic the drums.
Wow.
This is the way we did everything. So he was learning, and he was kind of like, John Fry's the guy's name, y'all can look him up, but he was kind of like a father figure to our band.
He recently passed, right?
He did. He passed away it's been quite a couple of years now. It was around 2014, 2015.
Okay.
I think it was December. It was right around his birthday in 2014. But every decision I'd ever made in my life since I was about 16, I talked to John. He was we had a relationship with them where they had shopped us to the record labels and stuff. So he was always part of my business as an artist. And things kind of shifted, man, as I got older. Our relationship changed because I shifted gears. I went over into the music business, the entertainment business, and worked for record labels, and I worked in music publishing, and I turned into a professor, which is really crazy because I left high school. And so, but every decision I ever made, from the time I was about 16 until he passed away those few years back, I always talked to him. No matter how busy he was or what fires he was putting out, he would take 10 minutes and go, okay, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm doing something really crazy.
Right.
I need to talk to somebody to have to, bounce it off of. And he always played, devil's advocate with me. He would talk to me about the steps I was taking and about how it was going to help my profile, my professional profile, and how I could contribute to things. And so he was I can't say enough great things about him. We had a really special relationship. He actually wrote a letter of recommendation for me to go to college after my stint with Tora Tora. The record deal was over, and I'd been doing some independent singer-songwriter stuff. I decided to go get my education, and he wrote a letter. He was one of the reasons that I got accepted into college. So that was huge. He and another guy, Richard Sanders, who was my first manager, wrote letters based on my life experience in the music industry to get me into college. So I'm indebted to those guys. And we had such great experiences, man. I mean, we had some of the funniest stories together. And if we were not on the road, and we stayed on the road for about 6 years. We told A&M, we said, we don't want to go home. We'll play every freaking honky tonk or Joe's barbecue shack or whatever. We don't want to go home.
Did you learn anything? After you learned the music business, did you ever think back about some of the decisions that you made you know, before you knew every, you know, the things about the business, and go, man, damn, I sure wish I would have had this knowledge back then when I was a little bit younger.
Man, absolutely. I mean, I did a lot of retrospect. In my mind, I was doing replays, you know, of our career, because, you know, when we were young and doing that stuff, we just went on tour and everything was organized for you. I didn't know there was all these strategy meetings at the, you know, corporate record label with meetings to have meetings about, you know, your scheduling and your promotional activities and marketing and all that kind of stuff. We just showed up with itineraries and followed along, and we wanted to make sure, you know, most of the time when we were in a town, we were there less than 24 hours, so we had to go and promote and shake as many hands and hug everybody and party, and we didn't miss much on the partying, but we really wanted to just make the most out of the time that we were there with the people. That was the most important thing to us.
Sure.
And so when I got into the corporate side of it, it was really nuts. And the really crazy part is I switched genres when I went into the corporate world. I went from the heavy metal world. I was working at a country label here in Nashville. Mm-hmm. There was a corporate training program that I got invited to join it, and they picked 10 people worldwide, and you learn operations at a record label. So every division, from scheduling and promotion and marketing and digital media and every aspect of it, the publishing side and all that stuff. So, and I got to spend time in each one of those areas. So when you were saying, you know, did you do retrospect? I was like, oh my God, man, now I understand why all this paperwork was shooting around to everybody. And at the very beginning, you know, it was kind of like somebody like put a dot on the wall, you know, and they go, this is you, and this is everybody else is going to be digging in your pocket. We're like, cool, man, let's go make music.
That's so
and
true.
You don't think about the ripple effect, you know, that how it's going to affect you after that kind of knee-jerk reaction kind of thing. But
right.
I mean, everything about it, I don't really feel jaded. I mean, when you said, are there some things maybe that y'all would have done different? You know, definitely there's things about how you negotiated and all that stuff. But, you know, as up and coming emerging artists and stuff, sometimes you don't have a lot of leverage, you know, to use that. So you don't have to take the deal, but it may not be the greatest deal that you've ever had in your life. So
and a lot of times you want to go somewhere, so you're just like, you're young and you want to just go, yeah, we'll do that. Yep, we'll do this. Exactly.
And you just think, you know, like, what am I going to have to give up to get what I want? And it's like maybe some kind of trade out here. But man, listen, our experience with A&M Records was amazing. I'm not kidding. I'm still friends with a lot of those people that are still in the industry or retired that were around when we were there. They were like an independent label. They were very successful, and they had some of the best staff. I'm not kidding. Our promotion people, they were totally crazy. I know all the promotion people were nuts, but we just got really close to them because we told A&M the very first time that we left Memphis, the first place we went was New York, and we had never traveled. We got signed in Memphis. We had never left Memphis before. So, and they literally flew and got in a car with us. They said, I just want to see your face the first time that you see the skyline of New York. And it was amazing. It was so awesome. And we had such a good time. It was a lot of work, but we were just so excited. We just said, man, we'll do whatever. We'll drive wherever. We don't care. We'll just get in here. I mean, we literally got in a van and drove straight to New York. I don't even think we stopped or whatever. We were just like, stop to fill up with gas and go to the bathroom and get something to eat. And
but it had to be so exciting. I mean, you know.
It was, man. And we took 3 of our best friends were our crew guys. So there was 4 dudes in the band. Wow. And we're all high school buddies. And then we had 3 of our best friends went as our crew. So there were 7 of us. We were in a 15-passenger van, and we were like a group of Vikings. We were just like, we're ready to go conquer, man.
Camaraderie.
Yeah.
So
you put out Phantom Rider. It was like one of the first songs on the radio. And then, of course, you had Guilty, Walking Shoes, and
yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I'm telling you, Phantom Rider is so crazy, man. I'm still friends. There's a guy named Thomas Howard. I talk about him. I do these Sunday sunset sessions, and I play acoustic. Started during the COVID thing, but I was talking about him on there. He and I wrote Phantom Rider together. He lived in my neighborhood. We weren't really, we didn't go to school together or anything, but he used to walk his dog every night. About 10 o'clock, he had this dog, Fred. I can't remember what kind of dog it was, but it was kind of this little black dog. And he would walk it up the street, and I kicked the screen out of my window. I lived in kind of this little ranch level house with my family, and I kicked the screen out. So when he'd come by, I'd lift my window up and I'd go out. And we would just sit in my driveway and like stare at the stars. And we would talk about, and we were talking, he was into really progressive stuff like Yes and Rush and all that. And I was kind of like Zeppelin and Janis Joplin and all that. So we kind of butted heads. We were kind of, messing with each other. But we would sit out there, we'd smoke a cigarette, stare at the sky, and we were talking about music. And he was just really great with lyrics, man. He had just stacks of poetry and stuff in his room. He was a really great bass player. But we had the music. I remember that chord, that opening chord of Phantom Rider, and I was just sitting on the edge of my bed, like, I wonder what this is going to be. I wonder what it's going to say. And Thomas and I got to working on it, and it was just crazy, man. That song took off. It became like a top 5 requested song in Memphis. We didn't even have a record deal. We had a little EP out.
Nice.
And our guitar player, he was always really kind of entrepreneurial mindset. He went out and put our tapes out on consignment back when there used to be physical record stores and stuff. He said, can I leave these by your register and just see if anybody is interested? And I mean, I'd be darned it. We sold all of them. I mean, we stuck them out and people went by there. The song started playing, and the guy that signed us to A&M told us we had done a couple of showcases, and we used to have this crazy warehouse in Memphis where we do these parties all the time. And so we invited all the record people to come there, and we created a little VIP area for them where nobody would know. We told them to come early, and we put them up in the top of the building by the soundboard and stuff. And then they just organically caught us in our habitat. Wow. It was our rehearsal room, and people just came in. They drug like lawn chairs. They had their coolers. We had 5-gallon buckets sitting around so they didn't burn the freaking building down. It's like put cigarettes out. And the people watched, and we ended up there was a bidding war for the band, like 5 or 6 labels that were there. But the guy that signed us to A&M, he told us, he said, I knew I was going to sign y'all because he goes, I went and jumped in my rent-a-car to come see you guys, and I turned the radio on, and Phantom Rider was on the radio.
So cool.
That's awesome, man.
He was a great guy.
Do you still have your leather jacket from your walking shoes video?
I definitely do, man. I hung on to that one. Some of the things in the wardrobe stuff or videos and things might slip through your fingers, but I hung on to that one. I didn't let them take that one back. I got it and kept it. And when my children have like 80s day at school or when they did, I was like, hey, I got something in the attic. You probably like it.
Yeah. Some of the tours that you guys went on, I did actually I caught the one you guys came with the Canes Ballroom. It was the Dangerous Toys LA Guns tour, and I believe, I'm not for sure, but was Shark Island, were they ever on some of the shows? Because I thought it was Shark Island, Tora Tora, and LA Guns here in Tulsa, but
maybe that's a great question. I know for sure. Excuse me. For about 8 weeks, we went with Dangerous Toys and LA Guns, and it was one of my favorite tours ever. Number one, the Dangerous Toys guys, they were from Texas, so we kind of had that Southern thing going on, and we just clicked with them right away. And I still talk to Jason periodically now. His voice is still amazing. He's super talented, just a super dude. I'm not kidding. We did Rock Timber last year, and there was a lot of protocol and safety and mask and all that, which was kind of doing a festival outdoor thing. But anyway, they were there, and we were like, man, I don't care what kind of protocol. I'm going in and hug that dude and get to see him for a second. But man, that tour, that LA Guns one, was so awesome. We started off in like Dayton, Ohio, and I remember people knocked on the door at the hotel, and they said, hey, they want everybody to come down into the lobby at 7:00. And it was like the night before the tour was starting or whatever. And we were like, oh, I wonder what they're doing. They must be going over like protocol or something. Well, anyway, we walked in, and all the LA Gun guys were there, their crew and everybody, and they just had their drinks up there, and they just said, man, get ready for the best time of your life. We're fixing to have a ball for the next 8 weeks.
That's so cool.
And it was so cool. They were so nice to us, and they were, pretty established. They had been running pretty hard by the point that we bumped into them. And that was during the
Cocked and Loaded.
Yeah, Cocked and Loaded, excuse me. That record. So they were blowing up. The Ballad of Jane was blowing out. We were playing these theaters all over the country. That was amazing. And, I can just see it now. It's so vivid. I can remember playing venues like the theater down in Atlanta. I think it was the Fox Theater, where there was like stars on the ceiling. Like you're indoors, but there's like a sky painted, and there's like clouds. I remember like playing Phantom Rider, and I looked up and like clouds were going across the ceiling.
That's
I was
so
like,
cool.
oh my God, this is like I'm outside right now. This is crazy.
So
I mean, it was so fun. And we see those guys periodically now, when they're out on tours or something, we'll bump into them. But Jason and them, I definitely have kept up with him. I followed him. He had that broken teeth thing going. I was following some of that stuff he was doing.
Yeah.
and we'll just call each other just to catch up and just, vent and talk about the industry and how everything's changing. And, it's so exciting now in the entertainment world for the generation that's coming along. We're at a point in history that we've never been before with the technology the way it is, and with resources and stuff that are available. They are going to change the world. I mean, literally daily things are happening between legislation and platforms and apps and all these things that are going on. I mean, it's so exciting now because we see all the potential. It's kind of like we've lived in two different worlds, man, with the physical realm getting, morphed out and everybody going into this digital world that we're hanging in onto now. It just gets me so excited about all the new people that are coming out and the opportunity they're going to have, man. I mean, they're a storefront, they're a brand, instantly, man. The second that you hit go on the internet, that's it, man. You're out there and now you're just driving and trying to get people to pay attention. So,
but can I ask you something about that? I as I was reading your bio, I can tell that you embrace this change and you're a champion of it. Is there any part of you that thinks because of this change that it's actually making it harder for an artist to break through because the field is so saturated now?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. It's so much competition. I mean, look, think about it, man. Everybody that we're talking to, time is our biggest asset, right? Yeah. That's the one thing that nobody gets back or whatever. And we're trying to vie for somebody's time. We have to, from a resource side, if they're going to pay attention to me, are they going to share some of my information, word of mouth? That's like the most credible, priceless piece of marketing that you can do. It is harder, but it's also there. It's kind of like talking out of two sides of your mouth when you're talking about this. It is harder because we can all create content, we can all distribute content, but there's that middle part of promoting and marketing yourself, and you need funding to do a lot of the things that you want to do. So if you're an independent artist and you're doing it, you're going to have limited resources. So you're going to maybe have to figure out a way to raise financing, crowdfunding, whatever those things look like, what you're comfortable with. But then the other side of that is from the physical side of this, when we were talking about, how we grew up and stuff with records and stuff. The harder part you're talking about is we're getting paid smaller royalty rates than we did a long time ago. Right. And everybody's upset about that. Legislation's happening. We did get an increase this year, and from 24 to 27, we're going to get an increase in streaming royalty. So we're moving in the right direction. It took them 15 years. I think that passed in 2018. Yeah. Then those big platforms said, wait a second, this is an unsustainable model. If we increase you by 44%, we're not going to be able to fund our, keep our funding going. But the other side of this is a long time ago, I sold a record to you, and then you went and made copies and did whatever you wanted to. And I only had one transaction with you. Right. You could go do anything you wanted to. I never participated in that. But now we have a long tail. We're tracking every time that you're playing my song.
Sure.
And from the other side of it, when we were starting out as little kids, we had street dates where we said, I need to get everybody I can on this one day to buy my record. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of like your big, I'm going to get on the chart. This is my story, the story that you're creating within the industry and within the fans. But now it's about a long tail. It's like, I don't need everybody. I just need people paying attention to go with me on this journey. And as I'm putting music out to go and help me promote it, they become your marketing and promotional staff. And it's super hard. What you said a minute ago is, yeah, man, I really feel like it. And to us, we have to get acclimated to this. To, the generations after us, it's like kind of ingrained in them. They're already tech savvy, and they're, we didn't have all this stuff. We were out knocking on doors and, trying to make stuff happen. So it is harder, but I think it's good, man. The competition and stuff is
I believe good. In 1989, I believe in I think maybe 19, one of those bands, I was promoting one of your songs. I think I was playing a song. I think, what was it? Guilty. I think, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I remember covering Guilty, and that was a fun song to play.
So you owe Anthony some money.
I owe you some royalties,
That's
man.
Right.
I can't believe it.
Pay up, buddy.
Well, hey, listen, that was a really cool experience. There was a guy named Tom DeLuca that came to Memphis. He came down from Nashville. A&M had set up a co-write for us, and we were really we were kind of standoffish about people outside of our circle. Like the guy Thomas I talked to you about was kind of like part of our family, man. He was just hanging around all the time, and so we were kind of used to being around each other. But this new guy showed up, and it was from the record company. I'll never forget it. And we were at the studio in Memphis, And we kind of really didn't want to go in the room with them. And I, honestly, if I'm just being totally candid with y'all, I think it was because we didn't really have a lot of confidence. We were kind of worried, and we were like, we don't know exactly. We know how it works with us, but we're not going to know what it's going to feel like to have an outsider in the circle. And so we kind of just did a standoff. Like we're not going to go in there. We're kind of being shit, excuse me, but we kind of were. But then it came around. Keith and I were sitting there, and we go, man, he came down to here, as we were kind of, I mean, nobody knew this conversation was going on. I'm just telling you guys, but we were kind of, huddled up and talking, and we said, man, he's here. Let's just go see what's going on. Let's just talk to him and hang out with him. He seems like a really nice guy. And man, we went in there, and I'm not kidding. It was one of the coolest experiences. And we could just kick ourselves, after that. We were like, man, why haven't we been doing this more, and like learning from other people? You kind of find out a lot of things about yourself when you do co-writing. And whenever I'm talking to people, I always say, man, try to write with as many people as you can, because you always learn something, even if it's something about yourself, about a strength that you have, or something that's a weakness that you go, man, I really need to focus on this part. I'm kind of sucking at this part. You start learning things about yourself, and you learn things about their techniques and their cadence and the way they put rhyming together, the way they put the melodies, arrangements, all those kind of things. That makes it really exciting. And it's so cool because, man, everybody's unique. Like, this blows my mind. It's so powerful. Everybody kind of looks at things different because of their life experience, their perspective, their creativity, their critical thinking skills. All those things come into play. And you go, wow, there's nobody like you really, like individually. And when you sit here, you go, man, I just grabbed this little nugget of knowledge and information from this person. It's just really powerful, and I think you have to do it kind of over and over. Especially, I got into music publishing for a while up here in Nashville, where I was setting up the co-writes and stuff. I was dealing with creative people, and it was really funny. They didn't even know I was a singer or anything. I was just working at a company. I was sitting at a desk, and they're like, what is this idiot talking about? He's in there at the desk. They didn't know I had been singing and all that kind of stuff. But I would set them up with rights and stuff, and I'm like, hey man, just go in there and just relax, man. Just go in there and kind of face this thing and go in there. And the more you do it, you kind of build your confidence up. I think a lot of that comes from, and especially just from an artist's perspective, you go in and you go, man, I don't want to go in and say something really silly or that's off or whatever and make myself look bad or something. But really, there's no bad idea. If you don't say that thing, then the conversation doesn't go in some other direction. So you start realizing it. I think you get over being self-conscious, I guess is what I was trying to say. I mean,
I'm curious so how does your lyrical content differ in like 30 years? Are you still writing about the same stuff you wrote when you were 20 something years old, or where's it come from now? Because I'm asking because as I look back, I try to write lyrics now, and of course I don't do some of the things that I used to do and write about. So you know what I mean? So I try to find different areas to draw those lyrics from. Well,
you got to write about house payments, right?
House payments and old people stuff, cataracts, right? Cataracts and Matlock.
Yeah. No, man. I mean, I think every song is different. How you get inspired. Sometimes it's the melody part of it. Sometimes it's just something you hear somebody say. You're scribbling around on a napkin, or something singing in your car, on the way to work. But like content-wise, I think at the beginning, we were inspired by a bunch of like the classic rock kind of people, Aerosmith and Bad Company and Led Zeppelin and stuff like that.
Which is partying and girls, basically.
Yeah, definitely. And we still kind of have that aspect. I mean, there's still those celebration things like Trip to Light Fantastic. It's definitely about us getting together and celebrating and just, I think we're going to go for a long time after COVID. I think there'll be some kind of after effect that people, some kind of, I don't know, that we realize what just happened. I think we're all still trying to process all that stuff. But we still feel the same way about us getting together, about celebrating. I think that was one thing about Phantom Rider that kind of carried, as people talk about it being nostalgic or whatever, that it was just about celebrating life, and that one person doesn't realize how much you affect other people, man. Not getting all weird like It's a Wonderful Life thing or something, but it really is true. The effect that you have on other people. And we get inspired by those stories. I mean, our fans and the things that we do on the road and stuff, the first record, we hadn't been anywhere. We hadn't done a lot of stuff. And it was, a lot of focusing on getting the girl and all that stuff. But when we did Wild America, we had been on the road for like 2 years. We were scratching on napkins, singing into, little handheld tape recorders. And we had a little 4-track we were traveling around the country in, and we were documenting a lot of stuff. So I think we shifted a lot between the first record and the second record, just because we gained some confidence. I don't mean that in a weird way to sound like cocky or something. I think we just got better on our instruments.
Sure.
Keith and them got really tight, and Patrick and John just got locked in. And there was kind of a learning curve on that first record, and we're so indebted. There was Paul Ebersol that I mentioned earlier. Joe Hardy worked on that first record with us. He had done a bunch of those ZZ Top records, The Eliminator, and all those songs.
Right.
And man, those guys, we went in and recorded, and then we went out of the room. We went next door and drank margaritas or whatever. And we came back in, we're like, oh my God,
who's that band?
This is so amazing. This sounds so killer. And so we're still really proud of that first record. And but there definitely was a shift, I think, between that first one and the second one, just because we got more experience.
Yeah, Wild in America.
Our topics shifted because we kind of got a broader view. We had gone out and had some, and so when you say now, what is it like? When we went in to write Bastards of Bill, it had been 25 years or something since we let music out. We were kind of in the same mindset that you're asking that question. We were like, what is this even going to be like? I mean,
who are we now?
So excited because when we walked in, we did it like we did a long time ago when we were little kids. We took a blank poster board and just stuck it on the wall, and we put in dummy titles for the riffs and stuff that we had. Like, this one sounds like Jimi Hendrix. This sounds like a Zeppelin tune. And this sounds, like everybody does at your rehearsal room when you're a little kid. But when we all started playing, we just went, oh man, this is what it's going to feel like. It just feels like it's us, man. It's Keith on guitars, Patrick playing bass, it's John on drums. And that's the sound. That's the Tora thing. And I'll never forget it. The guy that produced that record was, his name was Jeff Powell. He's another family member person. He had been an assistant engineer on Wild America years ago. He was an up and coming engineer. He runs Sam Phillips Recording in Memphis now. And if your listeners and people watching don't know about Sam Phillips, you need to look him up. He found some people like Howlin' Wolf and Roy Orbison and Jerry Lee Lewis, a guy named Elvis. He was amazing.
Not Costello.
Yeah, not Costello. But anyway, Jeff had reached out to us, and he said he saw us do a benefit for Patrick. And Patrick had a health issue back in 2016, and so we got together to help with some medical bills and stuff. And he told me, he said, I watched your show out in the audience, and he said it was something about when you guys got up there had been a lot of people sitting in all day and playing sets and all that. And he said, it's y'all, man. It's the four of y'all when y'all get up there together as a sound. He said, do you want to come and record a couple of songs with me? And it was really funny because when he was a little kid, he was the guy that got locked in the studio with us. When everybody would leave the studio, he had to stay with us to make sure we didn't record over the master recordings or what they go. You can play anything you want to, but don't push the red button over here. And I mean, we would be in there just twisting knobs and turning stuff wide up. And he would stay all night. Some mornings, people would start coming in and getting coffee to go to their office and stuff. And we had been in there all night with him, and he had to go into a session the next morning. And we were still in there going, yeah, man, this is awesome.
That's funny.
So anyway, we drove him nuts a long time ago. But he told us, he said, do you want to come and do it? And at the time, Frontiers had reached out to us about recording. And we said, man, you're not going to believe this. We don't want to do just one or two songs. We want to come and record a whole project with you.
That's great.
And so it was awesome. But man, going back to your question about how we write now, I think we're inspired by a lot of different things. I mean, the power of love and things like that we talked about, where they mean something so much. There's so much more heaviness and substance and stuff to those kind of conversations after having a wife and kids and family growing up. And I mean,
just because you're 50 doesn't mean that love's no longer a bitch.
No,
it's still a bitch.
Definitely not at all, man. Yeah, you hit that on the head for sure. But I think it just means different things to us. We're inspired by a lot of different things, and we always kept trying to grow. We, as a creative person, you want to keep the thing that has resonated with the audience. Yeah. But there's also that part of you that goes, I don't want to write Walking Shoes 5 times over. Sure. I want to go and do, something. I want to try some different things and go different places. And especially lyrically and stuff like that. Moving here to Nashville had a really big effect on me, for sure, from a songwriter standpoint. We didn't really spend a lot of time in Nashville when we were early in our career. We worked with a guy named Taylor Rhodes, who had produced and written songs with Kix. And he also had written Crying with Aerosmith. And so A&M set us up a few trips up here. And he wrote Amnesia with us. He wrote Faith Healer, the 2 singles off our Wild America record.
Yeah, great
and
album.
It really opened us up. You know, I was telling y'all before, we were kind of protective before. And I think that was just, we were insecure about our abilities and stuff. But as we started opening up and came up here, he really started teaching us about writing. He was a great influence. Stan Lynch, from Tom Petty and Heartbreakers, he wrote Nowhere to Go But Down with us, Time in the Tide, Rescue Me. We wrote a bunch of songs with him too, and that they were just really, you know, successful. They had kind of been doing enough. They had you know, chops and things to teach us. And then when I went into it from a corporate standpoint, like working at publishing companies and stuff, and I was dealing with writers and stuff, looking at it from, you know, a monetary standpoint, it kind of shifted it. Like I was watching people out there, it was really a craft. Like to me, I'm really foreign to the idea of just going and clocking in and writing a song every day. Like, you know, I'm gonna go get a cup of coffee and I'm gonna sit in a room and I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna do something.
So,
and I just went, this is so weird. Like I want to be inspired. I want to look at the sky, you know, I want to somebody affect me or in some way or something spiritually going on. But man, it was like a machine. And but as I watched, I was like, wow, this is really incredible. There was a guy up here named Roger Springer that I met. He was about my age, and he got signed to a publishing company. And we started talking, and we kind of had similar backgrounds. He had 2 record deals. He was a killer singer. We were totally opposites. He was like a Texas swing country dude, and I was a heavy metal guy. But I asked him, I heard him playing one day, you know, waiting for somebody to come in the room, and he played these most beautiful love songs. And I just walked in there and said, hey man, does anybody ever talk to you about the craft of songwriting? I mean, does anybody? And he goes, no man, people just show up here and they clock it in and we're kind of writing songs. And I said, I want to take you to lunch and talk to you about it. And I asked him about that, and he had been doing it for so long. When I had him at lunch, he said, man, when somebody's talking to me about writing, he goes, it's like a freaking blueprint of a house unfolds. And he goes, I know where the kitchen's going, I know where the bedroom, the living room. Right. He said, I already got kind of a setup of how I'm going to approach it. And he goes, most of the time I have some line that's been laying around that has to do with the topic they walk in with. And so I kind of get the thing started. And he just really I became really good friends with him because I would go out to his house. I couldn't write with him at work because it was a conflict of interest for my job. But I told him, I said, hey, I got some paperwork I need you to sign. Can I come out to your house out of town at your farm or whatever? And we wrote songs together. It was really fun, man. It was totally different approach than anything that I'd ever done. But he taught me a lot. You know, I felt kind of indebted to him because he shared a lot of his knowledge about how he had done it, how he came along. So it's just so incredible, man. Music is so powerful. It's one of the most powerful forces I've ever run into.
So after your LA Guns tour with Dangerous Toys, then you went on with Warrant, and which was probably a big, bigger venues there, and then with Lynch Mob, and then you, I guess, the grunge, era was amongst us at that point, and you actually had Alice in Chains do some shows with you guys. What was
That's a trip?
I mean, share some memories that you had with Janie Lane and Lane Staley.
Man, the Warrant guys were awesome. I think Lynch Mob was on that with us back at that time, and we had just such a great time. They were just first class to us the whole time. We were out hustling, man. Really, we were trying to stay busy on the road at that point. The shift was kind of coming, it hadn't all the way come in yet, but I remember playing with them, at like the Chattanooga, where the basketball people play up to college and stuff. And man, the crowds were great. It was awesome. It was so fun. And they were just a good time. We never really transplanted out to the Strip, to Hollywood. We always stayed based out of Memphis. So they were kind of seeing those guys, LA Guns and Warrant and all those guys. That was really fun for us to get to hang with them and kind of do the tours with them and all that. But they were always super cool. We still bump into some of those guys now. When we did M3, we were there at the same time, same days with them. And it always enjoyed getting to play with them. But
it's always great to see the survivors, huh?
Yeah, man, that's right.
The survivors of the biz.
Super super down to earth. And but man, the thing about the Alice in Chains stuff, man, I've talked about this before. A lot of people said, did y'all hate the grunge people because they killed your rock and roll or whatever.
What year was this with Alice in Chains?
That was probably.
I'm trying to figure out what tour theirs this is.
That might have been like in the early '90s. It would have been around 90 something, I think. But we saw them multiple times. We did some shows with them. I think it was Spokane and maybe Seattle. I can't remember if it was Seattle. It was in the Northwest for sure. But when we played with them, we didn't really think of it as a grunge thing. Like, we saw them and we were like, man, they kind of sound like Black Sabbath. They're kind of heavy rock, but they were super down to earth. I mean, I remember walking in and so it must have been early 90s, because I remember walking in and their t-shirts were on the wall and we were going, Alice in Chains, I wonder what they're going to be like, because we met different bands every night. And I couldn't stay. I was still underage, so it would have been 89, something like that.
Wow.
89, 90. Because I could do sound check and then I had to leave. I would look through the window and all my band was in there.
So that would have been their first tour.
Man.
Wow.
Yeah. And man, we stayed friends with them. They recorded with A&M at the A&M studio. We were out there doing press and stuff. And I remember they came up one time and Lane was hanging out of a car. He was up in the window, riding on the car. And he came up and he had a baseball hat on and had dreadlocks in it. And he came up, they were hollering and stuff as they come across the parking lot. And he goes, hey man, how do you like my haircut? And when he did it, he grabbed his hat and he spun his hat around and all of his hair went with it. And when he took it off, he had short hair. He had sewn his hair into a baseball cap.
Oh my gosh. That's
it's
crazy.
Like dreadlock. Yeah. It was cool. And we saw him in Memphis. They came through. This must have been early because they were doing a club date. He had broke his ankle. And so they had a big couch. I think it was purple. That they put on stage, and he went out and stuck his leg up on the thing and sat on the couch and sang the whole set. But man, y'all, I gotta be honest with y'all, his voice was freaking incredible, man.
He is my all-time favorite rock singer, man.
Yeah, he's great.
Man, I'm serious. He was so powerful, man, and just super down to earth. They were just really cool cats. It was really, I guess we were seeing them right before they really got huge, man, because I think they came through after that. They were on all the Coliseums and all that, opening for other people and everything, but they were really nice. And, it's hard. Soundgarden was on our label with us, so we kind of interacted. We would see those guys every once in a while. Or Chris came to Memphis and sang on some stuff at the studio we were working out.
That's so cool.
You're one of the rare stories.
Great singers, man. I mean,
you're one of the rare stories, though. You got to hang out with because most of the 80s bands that hung out together didn't hang out with the 90s bands, and you kind of got the best of you kind of hung out with both worlds there, so that's kind of cool.
What's also cool, amazing about you guys is the fact that you guys got to host Headbangers Ball, and then you're also on Bill and Ted's Adventure. What was it?
Excellent Adventure.
Excellent Adventure.
Yeah.
You got a song on there. I mean, those are two major milestones that when we were growing up and we're playing in our young bands, that's definitely two things: have a song on a kick-ass movie, and then also be able to host Headbangers Ball, and be able to do all that.
It was so crazy. We watched, like everybody did, every weekend, and it was like one weekend we were sitting there watching it, and we looked up and Walking Shoes was on there, and we went, "Oh my God, they're playing our video!"
Wow!
And the next thing we knew, A&M, Soundgarden was exploding. They gave them a lot of leverage. And they said, you guys should go to MTV. We're going to introduce you. And I'll never forget it, man. When we met Adam Curry and stuff, we were just freaking out. And we were like, oh my God, we watch this guy every weekend. We're sitting here across from him.
And his hair.
And we didn't know if we were going to be able to talk or not. And then they invited us back to do the Hard 60. We got to do that in the afternoon. And stuff. So, on that round, by that time, we weren't totally not nervous, but we were like, okay, we kind of know what it's going to feel like or whatever to be there. We were so nervous the first time. We didn't know what we were going to do. But it was so fun, and they were always cool. And we got to go on there a couple of times. We went on there with Adam Curry, and then we went back. Ricky was hosting the course, and Lon Friend was there. He did a really great review of our Wild America record when it came out. I saw him at M3 not too long ago and was telling him how much, all these years later, how much that meant to us. But man, it was just, it's been an amazing adventure, but we still feel like we got a lot of things that we want to do, and music wise, all that kind of stuff. We still feel, inspired, man. We still love it as much as we ever did. So,
and we're running a little bit short, but I did want to touch on the fact of your third album, and I believe that was an album that you were, where was it? Revolution.
Revolution Day.
Yeah, and was Tom Orman the producer of that album, and he
was.
And it eventually they just shelved it, correct?
Man, they shelved it. Yeah, we had worked on that record probably for a year and a half. And like every record, we wrote about probably 60 or 70 songs for each one of those projects. And you whittle it down to about 20, and then it starts getting serious, about protecting your ones that you want to make it and all that kind of stuff. But Tom was awesome, man. He was killer. I'll never forget it because it was one of the worst ice storms that ever hit Memphis. It came through, and he totally freaked out, man. I mean, like the city was losing power. He was worried about his hotel and stuff. And but he was such a legend and just so cool. He went out to a bunch of the honky tonks with us, the late night venues to see all the local musicians. And, Memphis is kind of like Nashville, man. Any kind of like little hole in the wall you walk in down there, it's just people that can just tear the strings off guitars and they sing and everything. And so Tom had a ball, man. We took him to all the little haunts that we knew about and introduced him to people that were just, local musicians that were just blowing up, just killing it. And so I think he enjoyed that part of it. We were really disappointed that record didn't get to come out. And, the hard part for us was we were super busy for about 6 years. And then when they kind of pulled the plug on that, the record deal was going to go away. And we knew, like in the scheme of things, our A&R guy had worked with Extreme and Soundgarden, and we were his third band. So he had a lot of success, and Interscope at the time had come to him and asked him if he would come and do A&R for them. Mm-hmm. And we were tied to a contract with A&M. We couldn't go with him. We didn't have an exit out of that contract. And he said, I'm moving. And it was hard because he was kind of our champion. He was our voice into the corporate wheel. And there was another A&R guy that showed up. He was super cool. He was very nice, but he wasn't invested the same way that the original guy was. Right. Mm-hmm. And we kind of knew that. So we started making phone calls. We were like, get the Memphis horns, get the backup singers, we just started just getting everybody we could. We said, man, we better record everything that we can right now because we feel like they're going to pull the plug on this thing. Sure. And we did. We had some great recording sessions. We had a good time. And unfortunately, that record didn't get to come out. We got access to some of the demos that people have heard now that we've, had let out at a later time. Because I think some of those demos got out. Wasn't
there like an auction or something? An online auction that someone spent a whole bunch of money for like some sort of a master tapes or something for that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think he had a whole box. It wasn't just us. It was all kind of rock people in there. But we did end up getting control of those things. But, contractually, you can't really do anything of that stuff.
Right.
I bet you guys were just completely heartbroken, all that work. And then, that just, sorry, guys, we're just going to have to move on. It's like, well, what about the albums? Like, we don't want to invest in it right now because
grunge.
Grunge, basically.
Because Kurt Cobain.
Yeah. It was hard, man. I think the hardest part was just we were so busy for those about 6 years. We were just running wide open, and then it kind of cooled off, man. When the record label was starting to step away, it was hard. And I mean, I remember Keith was at a point, our guitar player, where he was going to take a break. He was getting ready. His son was getting ready to be born, and we just said, "Hey, we've always been in the mindset of if you need to step away or whatever, let's just catch up." When we catch up, and I was thinking it was going to be a few weeks down the road I'd see everybody, and honestly it was years before the four of us got in a room together again.
Well, I think it's a great thing though that your bass player was able to survive cancer.
Yes.
I wanted to mention that, and
man,
the fact that you guys were on the Monsters of Rock cruises and you're up there having a good time doing AC/DC covers and just hanging out and partying with everybody. The sky's the limit. It's still the limit for you guys.
Yeah, there's something I want to say, Anthony, before we let you go. This has been the fastest hour ever.
It took by quick.
You have been an absolute pleasure to deal with. Very, very courteous in your email exchanges, and I want you to know how much that means to us because a lot of people in this industry have really big heads. I know you know that, and there's a lot of egos out there. And someone, even Jim Mullet, watching tonight in the chat room, talked about how humble you are. And, you know, truly, you are one of the nice guys in rock and roll.
Absolutely.
I'm so glad that Tora Tora is still relevant and active. And we want to wish you all the best, and definitely stay in touch with us and let us know how we can help push and promote you guys. We're definitely on your side.
Well, man, thank y'all so much for giving me a platform and a voice out to everybody. I appreciate it so much. And we can't wait for y'all to hear the new music. We're looking forward to seeing you out on the road with shows. Keep your ears open. I'm headed up to the Northeast, October 13th, 14th, and 15th. I'll be up there with Tony Harnell. We're doing some acoustic shows together.
Yeah.
And I think the third night we're going to have Mr. Ted Police jumping on with us over in New Jersey. And then the Tora show coming up in Memphis. Please watch for that on our social media. You can find us at toratoramusic.com. You can find us on all the social media outlets. It's us on there. We'd love to hear from you and talk to you. And man, I just appreciate y'all giving me a little bit of time to talk to you.
Hey, we need some Tora Tora in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah, come back to Tulsa sometime.
Yes, man, we got to get over there, man.
Yes.
Some of the comments, some of the viewer comments. Elizabeth Talcott says, "Fantastic interview. Keep rocking." Leslie Bailey says, "Don't ever give up."
Oh, thank you.
What a cool guy. Great stories. A lot of people have a lot of good things to say about you. You know, if you have the opportunity to maybe share the stream on your page or whatever, let other viewers check it out. That'd be appreciated. But we need to get Keith to grow out his hair. He looks like he can still have a full head of hair if you just let it grow out. I mean, you still got your long hair.
Oh man, that's funny. I'll get him to watch this. Listen to you guys tell him that.
he can grow it. You know, drummer not so much, but we can get Keith to grow it back out.
Sure.
Hey, technology's come a long way. You can do anything you want,
including grow
That's
hair.
Right,
right?
man.
Yeah,
that's
right. Man. Hey, you're the best, Anthony. We really appreciate you being on Tulsa Music Stream tonight. All the best. Stay in touch with us.
Awesome, man. You guys have a great night. Thank y'all again
so
for having
much,
me.
man.
Thanks, buddy. You too. We'll see
guys.
you.
Check him out on his YouTube stream, Sunday Sunset Sessions, right?
Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sunday Sessions.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, bud. Have a great night. All right, he's out. Appreciate you, man. Okay. Good one.
Yeah, that was so cool.
That was
great.
great.
You know, I can't remember, but I remember when the LA Guns thing, and someone said that they were somewhere at the fairgrounds, and I remember it was the Cabaret Theater, but I don't think it was the Cabaret Theater where I've seen them. Maybe they came back with Dangerous Toys, but I really think when I saw them was LA Guns, Tora Tora, and Shark Island. And that was the one I got thrown out of because I was underage and had a beer in my hand.
What did you not get thrown out of?
I think I was of age. I just didn't have an ID.
That's a problem. But we really are very appreciative of Anthony's time. If you came in late to the stream, you can catch the replay. You can always see all of our streams on replay. If you go to Tulsa Music Stream on Facebook, check out the videos. Yeah,
we are on YouTube. We're on Twitter, and we're on Twitch as well as Facebook. Get on any of those platforms and check our streams out. We have a huge list of all of our previous guests, from everyone from Rudy Sarzo, Lita Ford to Nickelback.
To you.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah. So there's a lot of cool stuff on there. Just check it out and hit subscribe on all that stuff. And our Facebook page just was able to change up its format. Now I wasn't really able to send out invites. Only every now and then it'd let me. But now I think there's an invite button on there, or a like button. And so if you haven't liked our page yet, please do so.
Be sure to share it too.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Matt Lemieux, thanks for that hookup with Anthony too. We appreciate you. Thank you to our sponsors, OKPC, Identity Merch, DEB Concerts. We appreciate your support of the stream. We do have 2 more shows coming up. We've got a lot stacked up here in October. We're going to be back on the air in 5 days. Tuesday, October 11th at 8 p.m. Steve Brown of Trickster will be on with us. And then a week after that, we have rescheduled Mark Kendall from Great White. He will be on with us Tuesday, October 18th at 8 p.m. And we would certainly be remiss if we did not mention the passing of our friend Mike Jameson, Mikey J. We want to send our thoughts and prayers to all of his friends and family, and we certainly are going to miss him. A lot of us have a lot of special memories with Mikey.
Absolutely.
And we just want to send our thoughts out there. We're thinking about him and all you guys tonight that loved him. But,
Teresa. Well, I don't think we got her on the camera.
No. Let's say hi. Hey, girl.
Hi.
You took your glasses off. That's exactly what I did. You know what we should do, Teresa?
What should we do?
I got mine on.
Okay, we're going to put ours on too. And someday Nine will put his on. Yeah, well, not Nine. He doesn't do that.
No, I don't do that.
But now we look smart.
Do I look smart?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you look everybody looks really smart.
How was everyone's week?
Smart.
My week was smart.
You have a smart week?
It was a smart week.
Yeah.
I have a smartphone, a smart car.
What are some of your guys' experiences with Tora Tora? Did you ever go see them live, or did you have their album?
Man, I saw them somewhere opening for somebody. I just can't place who. Maybe I didn't. I don't know. Yeah, it's been a long time, and that was a lot of
I did get to see them at the Rocklahoma show, which was other than the 80s.
Yeah.
And it was a really good show. That was in 2008. That was back when Rocklahoma's just
80s.
Yeah, just came out, man.
Right.
So it was a phenomenal lineup that year. It had like Armored Saint and a bunch of cool bands, man.
It was phenomenal.
Yep. So if you guys do not have anything else, we will sign off for the evening.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you guys for tuning in, and I appreciate each and every one of you. And thank you for everyone for sending stars. They're always there for you to keep sending.
Yep.
And we appreciate each and every one of them.
We'll see you guys next Tuesday, October 11th at 8 p.m. when we talk to Steve Brown of Trickster. Have a great 5 days. We'll see you very soon. Take care.